touch on one of those controversial type of subjects. And the reason I'm going to talk about it is because in Ephesians 5:5 it says, you can be sure that no immoral, impure, or greedy person will inherit the kingdom of Christ and also of God. For the greedy person is an idolater, worshiping the things of this world. So here is Paul making it very clear, and also as well other biblical writers who say it's not actually money that's the problem, it's the love of money that is the problem. And you can have a billionaire or person who hasn't got any money, and if they're pursuing the almighty dollar, well, basically, according to Paul and according to the Bible, is the fact that you are an idolater and you're actually worshiping the things of this world. Now, of course, one of those things is, of course, materialism, or it's called the pride of life, the lust of the world, and the lust of the flesh. Okay, so lust of the world is basically you're chasing after the things of this world, materialism and possessions. There was an old adage that went like this: those who have the most toys at the end of the age or end of life win. Well, that's not really necessarily true, because there's a reality is that we come into this world with nothing and we go out of this world with nothing. So what is the proper view of actually money? Well, it is to be used for the benefit of yourself and the benefit of others. And also, some of our billionaires have gotten the idea that actually what you sow is what you reap. So when you are sowing into the lives of others, you are actually using your money well. Let me tell you a little story about J.D. Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller. He had been pursuing the almighty dollar until he was about 53 years old. And then he had a medical crisis. Basically, the doctor said, Mr. Rockefeller, you're the richest man in America. But the reality is, in 6 months, you're going to be dead. He had contracted a very serious disease that was going to end his life. And so right then and there, he made a decision. And he decided, first of all, you know what? I got to come back to the Lord. I have been pursuing the almighty dollar. Then he decided to set up a foundation, of course, now known as the Rockefeller Foundation. And what he did at the time was he began to, amass all this amount of money. And he just literally gave away his fortune to the Rockefeller Foundation. And what happened, get this, he started improving. As soon as he started becoming generous, and instead of hoarding it to himself, his health began to improve. And he ended up actually living until he was well into his 90s. And he saw his generous contributions. I mean, after that, he says money just kept pouring in and he just kept giving it away. And it was pretty amazing. Warren Buffett, back about 2008, 2009, decided to give 34 billion of his money into, of course, to charity. Okay. And so, of course, the world applauded him for that. Now, there's a very important part too. And that is, if you give something for the applause of men, don't expect God to, of course, give you applause, because you've already had all the applause and all the praise that you want. God is looking for us to do things in such a manner that does not draw attention to us. A perfect example of that was Jesus was one day walking and watching the poor box, and there was a bunch of people this was a special box that was set aside in, of course, the temple for alms and for charity and for acts of love. And people would walk up there and they'd drop a big, huge amount of money, and everybody would go, oh, look what old, Gideon did, or whatever the name of the guy was. And they would applaud him, and he said, yeah, that's me. I'm really good at this. And then there was a little lady, widow lady. She dropped 2 little coins into the poor box. And Jesus knew her motivation. He says, that woman there just gave more than all the people that just gave because she sacrificially gave. Well, that's basically what we should be doing. You see, what Paul is talking about, he says, listen, if you are, going after money and the almighty dollar and hoarding it to yourself, and we live in a world that is very driven that way. When you look at what's going on in America and Canada and the Western world, basically, it's all driven by a thing called capitalism. And I'm not against capitalism in any way, but when you use your resources to basically pour it upon yourself. And this is the very reason. Right now, in fact, in Canada, we have the RRSP season, okay, where you put money aside. Basically the RSP is you put money down and it then get tax break for it, and then you have to, of course, later on pay taxes on it. So it's deferred tax is what it is. But people are saying, now you got to put lots of money away for your retirement. Now, unfortunately, what's happened is you need a little while ago it was $500,000, then it was $1 million, now it's $1.5 million to be able to make it through retirement. Well, the simple fact is that the average man lives to be about 76 years old and the average lady lives to be about 80. So that means you get to enjoy about 11 years of your money, okay? And you got to pay tax on it. So sooner or later you have to pay tax on that $1.5 million. Is that a good idea? Well, that's kind of iffy thing kind of thing. Anyway, the best way to view money is it is stewardship. And stewardship isn't just your resources, it's also your time and your talents. When you use your time and your talents and your resources for the benefits of others, you are actually sowing into, of course, a very powerful principle. My son, for example, is a farmer. And very shortly, he's going to go into his calving season, he's going to go into his lambing season, and then he's going to go into, of course, his planting season. And throughout the summer season, he's going to be reaping lambs. He's going to be reaping, of course, calves. And he's going to be reaping, of course, in the fall harvest. And all of this is designed, of course, to improve his situation. Now, that is exactly what you and I should be doing. We should be sowing into others' lives, because I want to tell you, there's some real benefit, not just in the physical realm, but especially in the emotional realm. I have met people who, when they are sowing into others' lives, they are really being fulfilled. So it's not just, your resources. You should be also sowing into lives, your time and your talents as well. Use it for the benefit of others. There's wonderful groups out there, farmers, for example, who are, taking a portion of their crop and giving it to Food Grains or Erdo or some other organization. It's absolutely marvelous what can be done when we use our resources for the benefits of others. It was my dad used to love the Salvation Army, and Salvation Army, of course, is an organization that is all about others. And one time, William Booth, who was the founder of Salvation Army, said, "Can you put into one word what the Salvation Army is all about?" He said, "Sure, others." So make sure that you use your resources wisely, because Paul says, listen, it is the love of money that's the root of all evil. This writer of Hebrews said that as well. And he said, when you love money and, are craving money, you're actually an idolater and you're worshiping the things of this world. And the Lord made it very careful. He's very plain. He says, listen, it's the love of this world that is going to disqualify you from heaven. So it's a very important thing to think about. And it's also a very wise thing to think about, because simply you and I are given resources and a certain amount of time. And you have to understand the greatest investment that you have is time. So use your resources and use your time wisely, not just for the benefit of yourself, but for the benefit of others. Because the truth of the matter is, It's not what you spend that's important, it's what you give that is important. And there's a big difference between giving and spending. And I just want to tell you about that. So today, as you plan out your day and as you plan out your future, make sure that you have some area to be able to use those resources for others. And in fact, if you happen to be like me, a Christian, my time, my talents, and my resources belong to God. It's a little thought for you today. Well, my name's Robert Dean Steele. And again, if you like what you've been seeing or hearing, press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for spending time with me. Have yourself a great and godly day.